Today on VNN Mod Reviews, we're going to be taking a look at Transmission Element 120. Here we go. Transmissions Element 120 is a Half-Life 2 mod that was released back in March of 2015. Now, this game is a free, short, single-player campaign that takes place after Episode 2. And this game was actually developed by a single person over the course of 2 years, so keep that in mind during this review. The majority of what you see in the mod is actually a lot of engine improvements. This mod boasts enhanced dynamic lighting, enhanced post-processing, improved support for complex physics structures and supermassive physics objects, pre-processed ambient occlusion, and improved AI and group behavior. So a lot of the work that was spent over those 2 years was spent within developing the source engine and trying to push the source engine as far as it possibly can go. And it shows. This is one of the nicest looking source engine games I have ever played, but with a cost. Or one of the first major complaints that come with this game is because it's running off of an engine that's just pushing itself to the absolute limits. During a lot of the major sections of the game, I can only get about 30 FPS, and I'm not running a terrible system. I'm running actually a pretty decent rig. So this game is actually pushing the source engine so hard that it can't in certain times get itself over 60 frames a second, which can be a major problem, especially for people that very much care about the FPS, which I am one of them. Now, the game itself actually is a bit weird, and it kind of seems to have its own distinctive parts. Right when you begin the game, it kind of just drops you into this weird area, and you just have to find your way around, finding a crowbar and trying to get to the next section of the game. This then begins the first distinctive part of the mod. To begin, you start seeing these QR codes sprayed on the walls that you're supposed to zoom into, and they give you a clue on what you're supposed to do within the next section of the game. There are 3 or 4 distinct puzzles that you have to be able to solve, and included within some of these puzzles is a new weapon that's a derivative off of the gravity gun. It's called the gravity concussion gun, and it shoots a ball of energy that you can use to either hurt enemies, open up doorways, or jump long distances or high distances. Once you get to a certain section in the game, it really turns into some sort of arena shooter where you are just dropped in this very large area where enemies keep respawning at you, and you have to figure out how to get out of it. This happens twice within the game, and then the game's over. The puzzles really only happen for the first section of the game, and there's really only 3 major puzzles, and after that, you just shoot your way out of 2 different situations, and then the game's over. So yes, in the description of the mod, when they say this is a short game, it is a very short game. You really could beat this in under an hour if you're very good with Half-Life and puzzle solving, as the puzzles themselves are actually not that difficult. Getting back to the complaint I had earlier, one of the puzzles involves just a ton of zombies found within a pit. And because there's so many enemies within a single place, it kills your frames per second. This is a major issue throughout the entirety of the game. The pit puzzle and the very last battle found within the game throw so much at you that even if you have a decent computer, it is almost unplayable with how low your frames per second can get. I know this really isn't the fault of the mod developer and is really just the fault of the source engine. The only other major issue I have with the game is that even though this is a cryptic type puzzle game where you have to be able to figure out where to go, there are certain sections where they just give you nothing. Once again, going back to those 2 major arena sections that happen throughout this game, you're not told that you have to figure out how to get out, and especially during the ending, you're not told at all what you're supposed to do. Stuff just starts shooting you, and you're supposed to start fighting back, and you're not given any kind of advice on what to do from that point forward. The game also does something that I'm not completely fond of, where you have to hold down your use key to be able to open a door. I understand this is a gameplay element that adds to certain action sequences, but it's kind of annoying. I know I'm kind of impatient, but when I open a door, I want the door to open right then. I don't like the parts in Half-Life where you have to turn a wheel while enemies are attacking you, and this is essentially the same thing, but the thing you're turning is just already on the door. And just keep in mind that this game is actually incredibly difficult. Like I said, the game seems to be in 2 distinct parts. The first part where you're just solving the puzzles and you very rarely see an enemy, and the second part where you enter the first arena and it mostly turns into a very large, endless horde mode. That's not bad, but the tonal shift between the 2 parts is very drastic, and it just kind of comes out of nowhere. It lastly should be stated that the story itself within this game is almost non-existent. The game's description does say that it takes place after Episode 2, but really the only story you get is through a few clipboards that you see scattered throughout the game. There is no introduction, there's no present story, and you actually have no motivation for what your character is doing. This might not be a problem for some, but if I don't know what I'm fighting for, I don't know why I'm doing it in the first place. And also, without spoiling the ending, it should be stated that the ending itself just comes out of nowhere. It just happens without any warning, and then the game's over. Sure, there are certain elements within this game that are kind of fun and could probably be a lot better if fleshed out within a larger game, but it also seems like that there's just a lot of ideas happening within this mod, and none of them are fully fleshed out. The puzzles start happening and the QR codes are great, but then they end out of nowhere, and the gravity jump gun is great, but it's kind of only really used at the very, very end of the game. Otherwise, it's just used to open doors. So yeah, I recommend checking it out if your computer is powerful enough, and I also recommend trying to play through the entire mod in one sitting. I do recommend for you to play it, but that was my review of Transmissions Element 120. If you like this video, hit the like button. If you dislike it, feel free to hit the dislike button. If you have any other complaints or compliments for me, leave them down in the comment section below, and if you want to support these videos, I am running a Patreon campaign. Link to that is down in the description. So thanks for watching, guys. As you know, I'm Tyler McVicker. This is Valve News Network. Have a good day. Adios.